ICE agents are scheduled to launch mass raids across the country on Sunday, and thousands of undocumented families could be targeted. The raids are expected to take place in these 10 major cities, spanning from Los Angeles to Miami, although Immigration and Customs Enforcement has said that they will not take place in New Orleans, which is strange because they just announced that they would, and then New Orleans is under a hurricane watch. ICE, which is handling the planned raids, is reportedly targeting those with court-ordered removals. But the New York Times notes that there could be something called collateral deportations, and the Immigration Defense Project also says that anyone without lawful immigration status is at risk of being arrested by ICE, as well as anyone with lawful status with certain criminal convictions. Their website, immigrationdefenseproject.org, has information on people's rights if ICE shows up at their door or targets them on the street. Joining me to talk about how this is all going to happen is the Atlanta Mayor Keisha Bottoms and the Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. Their cities are among those listed as targets this weekend. Thank you, mayors, for being with me. Mayor Bottoms, what, if anything, are you doing to prepare for this? Has the federal government discussed this with you? Are they asking anything of you? Are you planning anything?
Well, thank you for having me. And once again, we've been notified via Twitter, as is often the case with this administration. But we have an office in our city government called Welcoming Atlanta, and we are in constant contact with our immigrant communities. So what we have done over the past few weeks is to make sure that we are sharing information regarding your rights, regarding telephone numbers that you can call, asking people to make an action plan in case they are detained, and also just alerting our communities that this is happening. It is so unfortunate that this chaos and this anxiety is being created, not just for our immigrant communities, but for all of our families. When we went through this a few weeks ago, my 8-year-old son asked me, was he born in America? And then he asked, was his 11-year-old brother born in America? Because of the fear and concern and anxiety that it's even creating in all of our children. So
this is interesting because, Mayor Suarez, you, like Mayor Bottoms, have a city with a lot of immigrants, with a lot of people from other parts of the world, and this can be confusing, right? There were supposed to be raids some weeks ago, then there weren't. I'm going to ask you the same question, first of all, about what plans you're making and what you've been asked to do, if anything.
Well, it's extremely confusing. It creates anxiety. We have not been informed. We have not been asked to coordinate. We don't typically coordinate with any sort of immigration enforcement. That's not something our police department does. We don't know why Miami was chosen. Frankly, as mayor of the city of Miami, my first year, and I was elected at the same time as Mayor Bottoms, she's a good friend. My first year was, the lowest homicide rate in 51 years in the history of the city. So I don't understand the rationale for choosing Miami. And certainly it doesn't make it easier for us as mayors to keep our citizens and those who are in our city, under a normal state of peace and quiet and calm.
Let me just play for you what President Trump said this morning about how mayors feel about these raids. Let's listen.
A guy like de Blasio probably wouldn't want the raid, but many mayors do. Most mayors do. You know why? They don't want to have crimes in their cities or states.
Mayor Bottoms, let's talk about that. You don't want to have crimes in your city and state. I assume that end part of that sentence you agree with. But generally speaking, cities don't deal with this by asking the federal government to get involved and conduct raids.
And that proposition is just ridiculous. I've not talked to a single mayor who wants an immigration raid on their city. This has nothing to do with crime. Our crime numbers aren't impacted by illegal immigrants or whatever it is that he or whomever it is he claims to target. Our crime numbers are as they are in any other city, any other urban city. And so I think it's a farce, and I think it's unfortunate that we have a leader in this country who simply refuses to speak the truth. And this is impacting our cities, it's impacting our families, and it's unnecessary. So if he calls himself helping mayors, then he should start by asking mayors of these cities how we feel about these raids. we don't need it and we don't want it in Atlanta.
Mayor Suarez, to a lot of Americans, they're looking at this and they're saying, you know, there are crimes that have been committed to a lot of people. These are people who are on target lists for deportation. You are both mayors of cities that are major transportation hubs that have large immigrant communities. Mayor Suarez, how do you address that conversation about immigration and crime, which this president has muddled a great deal?
Yeah.
Well, what's your response?
I just don't see any correlation. I haven't seen any evidence that indicates that any of the crimes that are committed are inordinately committed by people who do not have legal status. So I frankly don't see any evidence of that. And like I said, we address crime through a variety of different tactics. We've increased our patrolling police force. We've actually done a lot of social programming, created affordable housing, construction programs, getting people to work. So I don't see any nexus between it. And as Mayor Bottoms said, it's not something that we've asked for. If we thought we had some sort of rampant crime, we would ask for federal intervention. Sometimes we do ask for federal intervention in certain circumstances. For example, if there are gangs or drug-related gang activity, that does happen on occasion. But we have not asked for any federal intervention in this matter because we simply haven't seen any evidence of it.
Let's talk about Mayor.
Sure,
go ahead, Mayor Bottoms.
No, I was going to say, I'm sure Mayor Suarez will also agree that if anything, this hampers our ability to address crime in our communities because you are driving communities underground so that when people are victims of a crime, they are now afraid to contact the police and provide information. So it further victimizes people.
What do you do, Mayor Suarez, in this case? We've had a lot of conversations in the last few days, including the citizenship question. In cities like yours, you require the cooperation of immigrant groups. Many documented immigrants in your city will have relatives or acquaintances who are undocumented. There is a movement in this country to sort of send a message to anybody undocumented or anybody who advocates for them or anyone who is connected to them. We are coming to get you. What can you do in response?
Well, certainly, I think if you're undocumented or don't have legal status in this country at this particular moment, you are living in a state of anxiety. Certainly, the cities that have been chosen have a heightened state of anxiety, for that. What I can do as mayor, obviously, I'm not a congressman, I'm not a U.S. senator, and I'm certainly not, anything other than that in the federal government. But we can advocate for common sense solutions to this problem. I think one of the things that mayors do is we're often elected on a nonpartisan basis, and we just solve problems. There are problems in this country, particularly in immigration, and frankly, we have to sort of put aside the partisan rhetoric, come together and solve the problems for the good of this country. We have 13 million people approximately who don't have legal status, and frankly, that's 13 million mostly law-abiding, if not all law-abiding citizens in the vast majority of them who would like to become citizens in this country and become tax-paying members of this country. And frankly, a lot of our entitlement programs need the influx of revenue. So it's a common sense economic argument. I haven't heard an economic argument as to why we shouldn't be heading in that direction. And certainly increasing our legal immigration system significantly to take into account the fact that many people want to be Americans.
Well, in fact, Mayor Suarez, the president, through Stephen Miller, who advises him on immigration, often cites a study that was done in Florida, the Borja study from Harvard, which has largely been debunked. But the message is that undocumented workers come in and lower the wages of people who are citizens or native born. That just doesn't bear out to be true. Do you see that to be true ever?
We haven't seen that. And frankly, in our community, there are many immigrants that are from all parts of the world that come here from a variety of different places. Some of the ones that we've seen recently obviously are fleeing oppressive regimes throughout the world. We have a tremendous amount of Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, Cubans, some of which are actually coming through the southern border and making their way over to Miami. We've always integrated all of those, and many more, by the way. I don't want to just select a few. There are many more, but we've always integrated them into the fabric of our community and our city. We've always been a city with open arms, and frankly, that's part of what made Miami successful. We're growing tremendously, and that's and there's a big part of that is because we have so many immigrants that are and people who are coming here from other parts of the world that are innovating, such as my father and mother, who came when my father was 12, my mother was 5, and my father was the first Cuban mayor of Miami, and I'm the first Miami-born mayor of Miami.
Mayor Bottoms, what are you telling people to do in preparation for these raids?
We're telling people to know your rights. Don't answer the door if someone don't open the door if there's not a warrant, to travel in groups, and essentially to stay inside if possible on Sunday if you are in fear of deportation. But I just want to touch on what you said about the economic impact. What I find interesting about that conversation, I've seen stats that it costs about $208 a day to detain people, as opposed to allowing them to stay on the streets at about $5 to $8 a day to monitor people who may be going through deportation proceedings. And so and when we already are facing this humanitarian crisis that we're seeing with our children, it is simply baffling that we or the Trump administration is willing to compound this already horrific situation that's happening before our eyes. But we are providing information on our website and through Welcoming Atlanta and sending information out on social media, just asking people to be prepared and to understand that they are entitled to due process.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.